Praise be to you, Yahuwah my Elohim. Praise be to your Son, Yahushua my Messiah. I come at your feet in the name of your Son. Thank you for the knowledge you pour unto me, and thank you for breaking all the shackle that was bound on my face. Yahuwah, you are the only true living God. Thank you for your Yahushua, whom you truly love. You are Elohim, the Elohim of the Yahudim.
Shalom, family. This is The Remnant Awakens, and I'm your brother, Pierre Ligi. I hope you're all doing well today, wherever you are. It's a blessing, to come together like this, week after week, and dive into these profound truths. Now, today's episode, it's a big one. We're unpacking some things that, honestly, have been overlooked or maybe ignored for far too long. This is about identity, about truth, and, really about reclaiming the faith and heritage that connects us, not just to history, but back to Yahuwah, the Most High. And here's the thing. When we talk about the song Kumbaya, most people think of it as just, like some campfire song. But what if, hear me out, what if it's something much deeper than that? You see, in those three small words, there's a revelation that's been right in front of us all along. So, as we go into this, I want you to just open your mind, your spirit, and let's take this journey together. And trust me, you'll see things in a whole new light. All right, let's get into this. Kumbaya. Now, most of us are familiar with the melody. Maybe you even sang it growing up. But how many of us really know what it means? I mean, like the actual words, their roots. So, when you break it down, kum means come. Simple, right? But when you attach it to ba or baya, which translates to father, Abba, you're starting to see a picture form. And then there's Yah, which is a shortened form of Yahuwah, the Most High's name. So put it together. Come, Father Yahuwah. You might be thinking, wait, how did this phrase, this cry to the Creator, end up as just some song? Well, that's the thing about history. Our words, our prayers, they get watered down, hidden, stripped of their power. But when we dig deeper, we find those layers again. And it's kind of amazing, right? To see that connection, that thread going back to our ancestors. And what's beautiful, honestly, is how intentional those words are. They aren't just a random chant. It's a plea, a cry for Yahuwah's presence, His intervention, His deliverance. It's faith expressed in the simplest, purest way. Think about it. Our people, enslaved, stripped of everything, still clinging to this language of prayer. Come, Father Yahuwah. It's powerful. And it shows, that even in the darkest times, there was this unshaken belief in who they were and who Yahuwah is. Pretty incredible, right? All right. Now let's talk about this idea that enslaved people were heathens or didn't have faith. First off, let's go straight to Scripture, to Deuteronomy 28:64. It says that Yahuwah would scatter His people among all nations because they turned away from Him, because of disobedience. Not just a few nations, all nations. That alone should already shift how we think. This scattering wasn't random. It wasn't just some accident of history. It was prophesied, a direct result of turning away from the covenant. And here's the thing. These weren't people with no knowledge of the Most High. These were Hebrews, people who knew the Creator, who knew His laws, His promises. Do you see what I'm saying? They were scattered, not because they were ignorant, but because they knew better and still chose to disobey. And when you think about it, that kind of reframes the whole narrative, doesn't it? Because it means that the identity, the faith, the relationship, it was there all along, even if it was, I don't know, buried or stripped away over time. These weren't just slaves, they were Hebrews, living out what was spoken in the Word thousands of years earlier. But it's not just about what was lost. It's about what was carried through, in little ways, in songs, in prayers, in traditions that refused to die out completely. Even when the world tried to erase who they were, there were these remnants, these traces of Yahweh's people, holding on to something bigger than themselves. So, when we hear about these prophetic warnings, like what's laid out in Deuteronomy, it's not just some ancient story. It's a truth that explains so much about our history, about how and why things unfolded the way they did. And it shows us that even in disobedience, Yahuwah's hand was there, guiding, waiting, calling His people back to Him. Let's talk about Christianity for a second, specifically how it was introduced to our ancestors. You see, the narrative we've been told is that it came as some kind of blessing, like they received this great faith from the so-called civilized world. But if you really dig into the history, you start to see it's not that simple, not even close. When enslaved peoples were brought here, one of the first things the slave masters did was strip them of their culture, their language, and yes, their faith. The Torah, the laws, the commandments, they weren't lost family. They were taken, intentionally, deliberately. Because here's the thing. If you disconnect a people from their identity, you sever their strength. And Christianity, as it was introduced, wasn't about salvation or truth. It was a tool to control, to manipulate. They took something sacred, something meant to build a connection with Yahuwah, and twisted it into something that would make their oppression easier to maintain. Do you see what I'm getting at here? And let me be clear. It's not that the message of Messiah is false. Not at all. The falsehood came in how it was presented, stripped of context, stripped of its roots in the Torah. What was given wasn't the fullness of the faith, but a version that served their purposes. It wasn't about reconnecting with Yahuwah. It was about submission, compliance, surrender. And here's the difficult truth. It worked. Think about it. If you take away the original instructions, the Torah, you take away the foundation. And if you replace it with something that's disconnected from its source, something that's been, reinterpreted for someone else's agenda, what do you have left? A faith that's no longer empowering but enslaving. A faith that keeps people in chains, physically and spiritually. But here's the hope in all of this. The truth can't be buried forever. It's been hidden, sure, but it's still there, and it's up to us to reclaim it, to see past the version we were given and get back to the original, to the Torah, to Yahuwah, to the covenant that was always ours. Okay, so let's dive into the songs. Go Down Moses, Wade in the Water, and Swing Low. You've probably heard these, right? Maybe you sang them when you were younger. or heard them in shows or movies. But what if I told you these weren't just songs? They're encoded scripture, family, encoded prayers, really. Take Go Down Moses, for example. It's not just a story about Egypt and Pharaoh. It's straight from the book of Exodus, chapter 5, verse 1. That's the scripture they were drawing from. You know, it's the plea for freedom, the same one Moses spoke when he went to Pharaoh. Let my people go. It's not a coincidence, you know. This was a call to Yahuwah for deliverance, mirrored through their own experiences of bondage. And then there's Wade in the Water. This song, it's fascinating. It has layers. Of course, it was practical. It contained directions for escaping, telling people to hide their scent in water, to throw off the dogs used to track them. But beyond that is drawing heavily on scriptural imagery. The lyrics talk about God troubling the waters. That, right there, is straight from the book of John, chapter 5, where the angel stirs the pool of Bethesda. It's a message of healing, of deliverance, a reminder that Yahuwah moves even through water to bring freedom. And Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, oh man, that one is, just deeply prophetic. It references Elijah being carried to heaven in a fiery chariot. 2 Kings, chapter 2. But it's also this coded hope, this expectation of being carried home, of finally returning to the Father, to the promised land. Do you see how all of these songs tie back to Scripture? They weren't just singing, they were preaching. They were crying out, embedding the word of Yahuwah into their daily lives. And honestly, it's amazing when you think about it. Even in the midst of oppression, when everything was taken from them, our ancestors found a way to hold on to the word, to remember who they were and whose they were. These songs, these lamentations, they're proof, family, proof that they weren't heathens, weren't ignorant. They were Hebrews, carrying the truth, singing the scripture, right under the oppressor's noses. Let's talk about the name Yah, family. Psalm 68:4 tells us, sing to God, sing praises to his name, rejoice before him. His name is Yah. That's powerful. It's not just a title or, an idea. It's his actual name. And it's right there in scripture, plain as day. Now, here's the thing. Even when our ancestors were taken from their land, stripped of their culture, thrown into bondage, they didn't lose this connection. They carried it in words, in songs, in whispers that the oppressors couldn't fully understand. That name, Yah, was too deeply rooted to be erased. And when I say it was rooted, I mean it was literally part of their daily lives. Think of the names, Yirmeiah, Yeshaya, Obadiah. Those aren't just scribbled down letters. Those are declarations. These names carried the Most High's name within them, like a constant reminder of who he is and who they were meant to be. Even in exile, even in suffering, the name Yah was present. It's interesting. Names have power, right? They carry identity, purpose. So when you look at how Yah has stayed with us, it's like this unbroken thread connecting us back to the Creator, no matter how much was taken, how much they tried to erase. Yah was there, like this undeniable marker of the covenant. And honestly, it's kind of amazing, right? To think that even in the darkest times, his name didn't leave his people. But here's a question for you to think about. If the name Yah stayed with the people, doesn't that mean the people themselves were special? that they were chosen, because family, this isn't just a coincidence. It's evidence. Evidence that the enslaved weren't just anyone. They were Hebrews, the very descendants of those who walked with Yahuwah, who worshipped him, called on him by name. All right, family, we've laid the foundation, right? We talked about the songs, the identity, the heritage. And now we gotta ask, why? Why was this truth buried? Why was it stripped away, hidden, replaced? Here's the reality. If the world acknowledged that the enslaved were actually Hebrews, scattered as part of Yahuwah's covenant warnings, then the entire narrative of white Christianity falls apart. And that's the point, isn't it? Because that version of Christianity wasn't just a religion. It was a system designed to justify oppression, to legitimize slavery, to erase the truth and replace it with a lie. Think about it. If the slaves were known to be Hebrews, then they weren't heathens, weren't uncivilized. They were the very people of the book, of Scripture. That truth flips the script. It breaks down the idea that salvation, or so-called civilization, was brought to them. It shows that faith wasn't introduced to our ancestors. No. Faith was theirs long before slavery, long before colonization. And honestly, exposing this changes everything. It challenges the authority of the oppressors. It dismantles the structures they built on lies. Because if the enslaved weren't just anyone, if they were the covenant people of Yahuwah, then the entire system of slavery becomes even more diabolical, doesn't it? It's not just about physical chains. It's about tearing someone away from their identity, their inheritance, their creator. But here's the thing. Truth has a way of resurfacing. You can bury it, you can cover it up, but it doesn't go away. And family, the truth is rising. The remnant is waking up. And as this truth comes to light, it's exposing the lies, not just for what they are, but for the purpose they served, to disconnect a people from Yahuwah and from who they were meant to be. Family, we've come a long way in this episode. Together, we've uncovered the layers behind Kumbaya, and now we understand. It's not just a song, it's a cry, a spiritual call to Yahuwah by the scattered children of Yashar'el, a call that, even in the deepest oppression, never stopped reaching his ears. Isn't that something to hold on to? When I hear Kumbaya, I don't just hear a melody. I hear the resilience of a people who couldn't let go of their creator. Even when everything else was stripped away, their names, their language, their freedom, they held on to Yahuwah. They called him by name. That's powerful, right? It's proof that the identity, the covenant, was never truly lost. It was carried, preserved, hidden in plain sight. And here's the incredible part. That cry isn't just history. It's the remnant cry, alive again today. Not from physical slavery, but from awakening. A spiritual awakening that says, we remember who we are. We know whose we are. And family, that's a call Yahuwah hears and answers. Always has, always will. So, let's be part of that cry together. Let's live it, walk it, shout it, for ourselves, for our children, for the world to see. Because it's not just a song. It's the sound of the remnant rising. It's us, family, you and me, Yashar'el, coming back to Yahuwah. And on that note, I'm Pierre Alexandre Nisi Lidji. Thank you for listening to The Remnant Awakens. Until next time, Shalom. See you on the next episode.
Praise be to you, Yahuwah my Elohim. Praise be to your Son, Yahushua my Messiah. I come at your feet in the name of your Son. Thank you for the knowledge you pour onto me, and thank you for breaking out the shackle that was bound on my face. Yahuwah, you are the only true living God. Thank you for your Yahusha, whom you truly love. You are Elohim, the Elohim.